Hi there, ladies and gentlemen. Today we'll be going over lessons 8.2 and 8.3. You should have last night completed your homework on Google Classroom. It was a Google form that you had to complete over adding and subtracting polynomials. So today let's go ahead and start with this warm-up, and then we'll get into our multiplying polynomials that you see at the top of your page there. It says, every week a store sells J jeans and T t-shirts. The store makes $8 for each t-shirt and $12 for each pair of jeans. I'm going to go ahead and underline that because that seems like it's going to be important. Which of the following expressions represents the total amount of money in dollars a store makes every week? $8 for each t-shirt. Well, t-shirts are T, so that should be an 8T. And $12 for each pair of jeans. Well, that's J, so that would be 12J. So where do I see that? That looks like letter B. Okay, second one over here. If A equals 5x plus 7y and B equals 2y minus 3x, what is A plus B? So I am adding these two things. Well, you know if I'm going to add things, they have to be like terms, in which case I'm just going to pick out the terms that match. So this can go with this, and I am adding. That will give me a 2x. And this will go with this. Again, I'm adding, and that will give me a 9y, which looks like my answer then would be letter H. Okay, so let's recall here. And this is not something you need to write, but I need you to remember. Well, actually, you know what? Go ahead and write this in here. When we had two monomials, now I need you to remember that monomials mean one term. Okay, so I have one term over here being multiplied by another term over here. When we had that, what did we do? Okay, if you remember, we went ahead and multiplied our coefficients, which were these numbers here, and that would have gave me -8, and then we added our exponents, which would give me x to the 6th and y to the 3rd. Okay, so I need you to remember that we are going to multiply coefficients and add exponents. Okay, and I'm sure you can guess as you look down at these problems that we have here, 1, 2, 3, 4, that we are going to be using the distributive property. Okay, the distributive property. So we are going to go ahead and distribute this x that's in front. Notice this is a monomial times a polynomial. Okay, a monomial times a polynomial, a monomial times a polynomial, and a monomial times a polynomial. Again, we are going to be using the distributive property. So here we go. If we do x times x, please notice there's no coefficients to be multiplied, but there would be exponents of 1 on both of those, so this would become x squared. Then if we take x times 3, we have that being 3x. Okay, let's try again. This time I do have coefficients to be multiplied. That'll be -8. And then if I add my exponents, I get x to the 3rd. Multiply again, -2 and -3 make a +6. And then we're going to add those exponents on the x's, and that gives me x squared. And my last term would be -2 times 5, which is -10. And then we're just going to drop that x on there. Multiply. 5 times 3 is 15. If I add my x's, I get x to the 3rd. And if for my y's, basically I'm just going to drop that y squared in there. Multiply here, I get -20. Add your x's, you get x squared. Add your y's, you get y to the 3rd. And we have a +5 for my coefficient. The x's just get dropped down, and that will give me y to the 4th when I add them. And last one in this row, let's distribute this y. So this will give me y to the 3rd when I add my exponents. This will give me 3 for a coefficient and then y squared. And then this will give me a -2 and a y. All right, moving on to the next row. The only way I can make this a little bit more difficult, folks, is to put lots more variables in there and have you distribute more times. So let's try this. I have -6. That'll be b to the 3rd when I add them. If I multiply here, I get -12 b squared. And be careful here because this will become a +3 and we drop our b on there. For number 6, I have 20 x to the 4th when I add those exponents. This will give me a negative 8 when I multiply, then an x to the 3rd, and we'll drop the y in. And then we have a plus 4, and we'll drop the x's in and drop the y's in. Now don't be scared off by this fraction here, number 7. We're just going to multiply like usual. A third times 6 is 2. Add your x's, you get x to the 4th, and then drop your y in there. A third times negative 9 is negative 3. Add your x's, you get x to the 3rd. Add your y's, you get y squared. And a third times negative 3 will be negative 1. I'm not going to write that, but I am going to drop my x's in there and then add my y's, which will give me that. All right, in number 8, we're going to have to distribute twice, and then we're going to have to combine like terms. This will give me 2x squared. This will give me minus 6x. This will give me 5x, and this will give me negative x squared. So it looks like this term can go with this term, and that just gives me x squared. And then these two terms can go together, and that will give me negative x. Again, let's distribute twice in number 9. This will give me 12r to the 3rd minus 6r squared. This will give me minus 12r to the 3rd, and this will give me plus 15r squared. My r to the 3rds, oh, those cancel out. And then my r squareds, this will give me 9. And again, please notice I leave this as r squared. I don't add the r's and make it r to the 4th or subtract them or anything like that. All right, if we look at number 10, this is a little bit different. You'll notice we have brackets and parentheses. So we need to go to the farthest part on the inside of this problem, which would be distributing this negative 3. So I'm going to rewrite everything else, and now I'm going to distribute. That gives me negative 3 and then plus 3a. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and distribute the a, and when I do that, this will give me 2a squared minus 3a and plus 3a squared. Put together my like terms. That'll give me 5a squared and then minus 3a. Again, remember when we're adding and subtracting, we leave the variables the way they are. We're not adding the a squareds to make a to the 4th. Okay, the only time that we add exponents is when you are doing multiplication. All right, why don't you go ahead and pause the video right here, and you go ahead and try these two problems. So go ahead and pause it, and then we'll pick it back up when you're done. Okay, let's go ahead and move on to the next section of your notes. It says recall again when multiplying monomials. Please again remind me what we do when we multiply monomials. You are going to multiply the coefficients, and hopefully you're realizing how important this is because we've written it so many times now. You're going to multiply the coefficients, and you're going to add the exponents. Okay, so this time, instead of multiplying a monomial times a polynomial, now remember, and again, you don't need to write this, but I just want to show you again, this is a monomial times a polynomial. Now we're going to do a polynomial times a polynomial. And in this case, it's a binomial times a binomial because those things have two terms. Okay, so when we're going to do this here, we are going to use repeated distributing. And I'm going to show you what that means here on this problem, off to the right. So I have a binomial times a binomial. What I'm going to have you do is cut the first binomial in half. So I have a 2x and I have a 5. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this 2x and I'm going to distribute it to the second binomial, which is x minus 2. Then I'm going to take the second half of this, which is plus 5, and I'm also going to distribute it to the x minus 2. So this is why we call it repeated distributing, because I'm taking that first one and cutting it in half and distributing it to the second one. And now this is just regular distributing, folks. So we're going to go ahead and distribute here. So I multiply my coefficients, which just happen to be 2 here, add my exponents, which will be x squared, minus the 4x. And here when I distribute, I get plus 5x and minus 10. Now you'll notice that these two terms in the middle go together, and I get 2x squared plus x minus 10. Now I want you to notice that I wrote this in a specific order. I have my x squareds first, then my regular x is in the middle, and then my constant is on the end. And that's how we're going to want you to rearrange these if possible. All right, so let's try another one. We're going to cut this in half. I'm going to take x times x minus 1, and I'm going to take positive 4 times x minus 1. And we're going to distribute. X times x is x squared. X times negative 1 is negative 1x. 4 times x is 4x. And 4 times negative 1 is negative 4. Put your middle two terms together, and I get x squared plus 3x minus 4 for my final answer. Okay, so that's it, folks. That's what we're going to be doing for the rest of these problems here. Split the first one in half. I have 3y times 2y plus 4, and I have minus 2 times 2y plus 4. Repeated distributing. So this will give me 6y squared plus 12y minus 4y minus 8. Two middle terms go together, and I get 6y squared. Let's see here, my plus 8y and then minus 8. Cut this first one in half. We have 2a times negative 3a minus 1 and plus 3 times negative 3a minus 1. Negative 6a squared minus 2a minus 9a minus 3. Middle terms go together. I get negative 6a squared minus 11a, and then minus the 3. Okay, so we've got a whole nother row that looks just like this, and then another row, again, just like this. So we're going to go through and do these repeated distributing. All right, I think I'm probably going to do 2 rows, and then I will leave the last row for you for extra credit if you want them. All right, cut the first one in half and do repeated distributing. D times 2d is 2d squared minus 4d, plus this will give me 14d minus 28. My middle two terms go together, and that gives me a 10d minus 28. Cut the first one in half. I have a times a minus 2 and a positive 2 times a minus 2. Distribute, you get a squared minus 2a. Distribute, you get plus 2a minus 4. Middle two terms, oh boy, those cancel. So I am just left with a squared minus 4. Okay, those middle two terms are opposites of each other. Okay, they cancel out. We're just left with a binomial. Negative g times g minus 9 and plus 10 times g minus 9. This gives me negative g squared plus 9g plus 10g minus 90. Middle two terms go together, and I get 19 g's and then the minus 90. All right, cut the first one in half. I get w times 2w plus y, and then minus 3y times 2w plus y. Distribute, I get 2w squared plus, now this is going to be wy if I keep that in alphabetical order. This will be minus 6wy, and then minus 3y squared. Again, my middle terms go together. That's 1wy minus 6wy, which will give me negative 5wy's. Cut this guy in half. I have negative r times 3r minus 8q, and I have plus 3q times 3r minus 8q. Distribute, this will give me negative 3r squared plus 8q QR plus 9QR minus 24Q squared. Middle two terms go together, and that'll give me a 17, and that's QR for that middle term. All right, last what I'm going to do with you here. Now, I like to write my L's cursive so that I can make sure they don't look like ones. Okay, so I get 3JL minus 15JM plus 4KL minus 20KM. And if you look at this, none of those will go together because I had 4 different variables in all of this. So that would just be my final answer since there are no like terms. All right, I'll leave this for you for extra credit if you want to put that at the end of your homework assignment. Speaking of homework assignments, your homework assignment will be page 475, numbers 18 to 23, and page 483, numbers 1 to 6. All right, folks, I will see you tomorrow.